7 to 10 Americans worry that our nation is in a crisis. The core values of morality, justice, fairness, generosity, integrity are being challenged. And these values have been based on our Christian heritage. This is Jackie for RX for Joy. And right now I'm in Ethiopia on a mission to our hospital here. But I watch the news and I'm really concerned. Despite our Christian heritage, a recent poll by the Washington Post found that only 39% of Americans thought religion was important. Only 30% thought family values were important. And yet, these things are the answer to our crisis. I found comfort and answers in Psalm 128. Psalm 128 is a song of ascent. That means it was sung by the Jewish people as they walked up the mountain to the temple in Jerusalem. I still remember a time when my husband and I were in Jerusalem on a Sabbath. The streets were deserted and quiet in the early morning, but we heard this beautiful singing. And we looked around and here came a father and a son walking up to the Temple Mount, and they were singing. Keep that image in your mind as we read Psalm 128. How blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. When you shall eat of the fruit of your hands, you will be happy, and it will be well with you. Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine within your house, your children like olive plants around your table. Behold, for thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion, and may you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Indeed, may you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. Did you see how the word bless or blessed was repeated? That word means abundantly happy, very, very happy. This is meant to be a joyous song. The last two verses end with a blessing. Look at that again. It's a blessing that is spreading to the city of Jerusalem and to the nation of Israel and to the next generations. The key to this prosperity, this blessing, is in two verses. Verse 1 and verse 4. How blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his way. Behold, for thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. There's a lot of truth in this psalm. And I think this picture of a family is key. The restoration of our nation is going to be dependent on individual people following these verses. It starts with a strong family, with the father as the head, a man who fears the Lord and walks in God's ways. I know that this is true as I look at Israel's history and culture. Here's a quote about Jewish life and customs. Families are the building block of society, and Jewish law and tradition highlights the centrality of the Jewish family. Judaism recognizes that each parent has something different to give to their children to contribute to their religious, educational, emotional, social, and material needs. So look back on verse 2. We see fathers who are working with their hands, working to provide for their families. And this is so central, the father being part of the family. And this is central to the delightful family portrait that we read about in Psalm 128. The wife is described as a fruitful vine. This metaphor suggests, a vine growing, spreading, going up, going out. The wife is part of the whole home. She's here and there, caring, nurturing, teaching. She produces fruit like the Proverbs 31 woman. And the children are gathered around the table. They're not scattered to every sports event that is available. I know in reality, life is very busy for young families, and it's a good thing. But here you're intentionally gathering the family together to have fellowship, a meal. The children are not full-grown olive trees. They're plants, and they need the father and the mother's nurturing, a sense of belonging, taught right there at the table. Taught the family's core values, which includes valuing their time together. I have a pastor friend here in Ethiopia who shared with me how his father would get the whole family up every morning from 6 to 7, a whole hour, and the father would teach about the Bible and pray with his children. He was intentional and very careful to teach them truth. Psalm 128 suggests that the father is at the head of the table and he's gazing out at his family and he's pleased. He's blessed. He's worked hard to provide for their well-being, and he's working hard to provide for their spiritual well-being. And now he's seeing the fruit of his work. The key is that he knows the Lord and he knows the Lord's ways. His life is one that his children can imitate. He and his wife are united in their faith and in their priorities. Just before this psalm, in Psalm 127, listen to these words of advice. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. So yes, the Lord needs to be building our families, our homes, making our nation strong again. We can try to guard our way of life, but unless the Lord is the key, we will fail. And let's face it, our country has taken God out. And I do fear for our country, but God has not given up. Let's pray for strong fathers, strong mothers, and the fruit of their hands, their faith that is passed on to the next generations. Let's pray that the core values of our nation are restored. Let's pray that we turn back and put our trust in God. And then we too someday will sing with joy as we come into the presence of God. So my RX for joy today, let's pray for strong families and return to our core values, the ways of the Lord.